I have two questions for the Black Book. The first question is on page 271, and I wanted to know the difference between illusion and illusion. They say
between the word illusion and the Hebrew word illusion.
Yes, according to the Black Book, it shows that they're related.
It's saying they're related phonetically. Just like you can say the little boy from Cuba, his name was Eliun. You know right away they're phonetically related. You follow what I'm saying? And what most people don't realize is all languages on the planet Earth are related. I'm going to get back to your point, but I want to establish that. And a certain person or certain being is responsible for all the different languages on the planet, according to Bible-believing people. Somebody diversified the tongues, caused the Babel, and now people speak different languages. Whoever that person is also the person responsible for racism, separation, and hate. You say, well, how's that? Because Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, that same person says, I'm going to put enmity between the woman's seed and the serpent seed. So this being talking is saying, I'm going to put enmity, I'm going to put hate, I'm going to put rivalry between two beings that I created. Because God created both that woman and the devil. And people say, well, how did God create the devil? Well, because people say that in the Bible or the Quranic life, that the devil is darkness and God is light. That's why Jesus is early morning star, and God is called a bright light, and light is knowledge, etc., etc., etc. But when and if God did create light, and he said, what, let there be? When he did that, he had to create shadows. Because if you create light, you automatically create a shadow. Now, the light the shadow is created by an object in light. So therefore, when the sun was created, if the sun is a mass, and that mass has a shadow, then he said, let there be light, and he deciphered that the sun was light, and that evening and the morning, there was a shadow out. But neither one of them are pure darkness, because the sun itself had to be created outside of darkness. If there was no light, there'd be no shadow. So you had darkness before you had the shadow. So therefore, their reference to dark as evil is in actuality talking about the shadow, not the state of darkness that God had to be in when God said, let there be light. All intelligence, all thinking has its birth or origin in darkness, meaning there is no light inside your head at this moment. So when you see anything, you look outward apparently and you reflect the image inward. So in order to see, you don't see this way, you see this way. And therefore you're sending light inward to darkness. And when it gets inside the head, it follows through the eyes, through the optic nerve, then it triggers with the brain. Therefore the intelligent point, or the point of decision, or deciding what I'm looking at, how tall it is, how bright it is, how fat it is, how thin it is, how red or green or blue, is done in darkness. And it takes the intelligence to make that decision. You follow what I'm saying? It doesn't take the ability to cut on the light to use the intelligence. The intelligence factor is done in the darkness. Thus God, in actuality, being the source of all intelligence, dwells in darkness. And God said, let there be light. And when light came, there had to be a shadow. And that shadow is what they're calling the darkness of evil. And that's why if you look in the Quran, the same word they use for darkness, zulm, is the same word they use for shadow, zulm. And the Arabic of the Quran is from the ancient Semitic, which goes back to the ancient Semitic languages where Hebrew is the same word. So their definition of shadow and darkness was the same. Somewhere along the line, the preacher and the teacher got confused. And they just made all darkness bad. And then said darkness is associated with black, so black thus is bad. But black, not being a color but a state, existed before darkness. You see, because darkness is telling you it has a state, it has a degree of itself. Darkness. There is darkness, then there's less than darkness. And a shadow is determined by how far the sun is from the object that it's reflecting upon. You with me so far? So when you reach down inside the human being, right, in the mind, you find light or darkness. And in that darkness you find reason, decision, and thought. So when God said, let there be light, and thus God created a shadow, the counterpart to light, the shadow was the darkness, the irreality yet existing, the unpurposed yet existing, the untangible yet existing, the illusion of the Most High. So Illusion translated as the Most High, and illusion to the Most High would be its equal untangible. The shadow is equal to you in all shape, size, and intensity, but not in density. You follow? That's why in the Black Book it says illusion and illusion is really from the same thing. Because illusion is alluding to the shadow of the material thing. And we've been taught to ignore how important a shadow is. But all of us will step in the shade when it's cold, when it's too hot. And while we seek the shade, the shadow seems to become very important to us. But on a cloudy day, right before a picnic, when we're wishing for the sun, all of a sudden we no longer like the shade. We don't want the clouds to hinder our picnic. Now, go away, clouds. So we've been taught to cast away the dark, because it hinders what I can do in the light. Never realizing that anything I do in the light is coming from the intellect. And that's why we refer to that as the intellect and not the outtellect, because those decisions are made in the head, not outside the head. The vision and what I see is determined from my insight, not my outsight. You follow? Okay?
I have one other question. On the same page, it states that the square, according to the ancient ones, is different than the one that what we perceive as a square.
Okay.
I don't want to know how.
I'll tell you why. Because when we see a square, we're looking at 4 90-degree angles, right? Is that a square? What is the difference between a square and a cube, geometrically speaking?
The cube has 6 sides.
A cube has density,
Yes.
but it's still a square. And from each angle you look at it, you see a square from any direction. This is what makes it a cube. But when we look at the square, or the square, all we're looking at is a frame undefined. It has to, from that point, make a decision as to what it's going to become. But the cube has completed its journey into what it is. It becomes the cube. Or out of it, it becomes a Kaaba. You follow that? The square plus, now listen, does the square geometrically add up to the cube? The square gives me 4 90-degree angles. But the cube gives me how many? The 4 90-degree angles on a square, because the square doesn't have its density. It hasn't become the cube in order to create the next 4 corners. So the square gives me 300, how much is the square? 4 90 degrees? And the cube? 720. 720. If I had a blackboard in front of me, I would draw a square. And I get my 360 degrees. And then I would draw a cube. And you'll see that the point from which I join the lines, the cube transforms itself either inward or outward. It's taking me from the physical into the next realm. I don't want to just say spiritual. It's pulling me from the 3rd dimension, the cube, to the 4th dimension, the square. When in actuality, the cube has the density. So that's why they say it's an optical illusion to look at a square when you make the box. You can't tell the central point whether it's coming at you or going in. But you're looking at the square turned with the point facing you as opposed to the cube turned with the face. I hope I'm not losing you, but if I could draw this, it'd be easier. So I'm trying to draw this in our mind, and it could sound real confusing. So, in actuality, the 720 degrees that the cube produces gives you 360 degrees of the physical plane and 360 degrees of the spiritual plane. I don't want to use spiritual because I don't want people to get spooky, right? Whereas the square, a geometric symbol, the geometry, is only giving me 360 degrees of the physical plane. I'm seeing it before it becomes what it is destined. And it only has one destination because all the points are closed, and that is to become a cube. It's a reference to our character and what we are as a one-dimensional being with the soul. When I look at this gentleman, I see his physical and I see him 360 degrees. I see what it takes to be a mortal. But I'm also looking at a spiritual being that will only come out when he is finished becoming what he was cut out to be. So in Freemasonry, they have what they call the asher, or the uncut stone. And they carve it until they get a perfect square. And they continue to carve until they manifest a perfect cube. And those stages are the growth of the shaping of our character. Because while we are squaring off our actions and deeds in the physical, it must have a reaction on the spiritual level. In order for me to get myself together physically, I have to get myself together mentally. I cannot pretend I'm not using drugs no more. I have to stop using drugs. I can't pretend I'm not getting drunk no more. I have to stop. So that square becomes that cube is a reference to a perfect asher. A stone cut without the sound of a hammer, nor the sweat of a brow. That means you cut the stone because you, as a being, is an uncut asher, a rough stone. It must be cut. And then till you become a perfect being. And most people say you can't ever become perfect. And I say, wrong. If you're in the image and after the likeness of God, you have a destiny to become perfect. And whoever's telling you you can't become perfect is dangerous. Because that person is questioning the God quality in you and the gift that God gave you to be in his or her image and after his or her likeness. You do have a destiny to square yourself off. There's symbolism in the black book. It has yet to be elaborated on. And that's just called one of one. Okay? Okay. Amen.
As the mysteries of Egypt intrigued you, the secrets of the pyramids and the scientists that built them. Well, now you can have the secrets. Now you can enter into ancient Egyptian order and learn who and what belong. Who built the pyramids? Why? Medicine, alchemy, the secrets of symbolism revealed to you. Enter the ancient Egyptian order now.
Right here.
Okay, yes, but I'm not going to try to find you. Okay.
Rahul
I
have a question. It states that raise small names.
Excuse me, I don't want to be rude, but it states.
Oh, excuse me, the black.
Okay.
Pardon.
I got to be with you.
Okay, in the black book it states that raise small name is Elul. And later on in the black book it states that Enlil was called Elul. So I guess my question is, what is the connection, if any, between these two beings having the same name and between the material that you could
You mean these four beings, don't you?
Four beings?
Because whatever you say is Ray, You're saying Atumre, and Amunre. And it depends on what known in ancient Egypt you were in at the time, and which one worshipped which deity. See, some, let's say in Thebes, they had Amun-Re. So they refer to Amun-Re there as Re because Amun was understood. And if you went to Memphis, they had Atum-Re. And they just referred to him as Re. So therefore, all of the Anunnaki were Re's. They all fall under the term Re. That did not apply to all of the Sumerians. All of the Neolithic Egyptians, before the word Egyptos was used, were referred to as Re. That did not refer to the dynastic period that came out of them. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
I have a question in the Black Book on page 33, in reference to the sisters of the brother portion right there. You said that you have mastered one, it's on page 33, so you have mastered 1, 2, 3, and have traveled, 1 and 2, and have traveled 3, 5, 7, and now you hold the key between 1 and 9, and I was trying to get a clear understanding on the numbers.
Not being a Freemason, you might not understand. But oftentimes in Freemason, they might ask an individual, how old are you? And the answer is 1, 3, right, 1, 3, or 5, right? And that's making a reference to which degrees of the ladder of Jacob they have climbed. So I'm making reference to any Freemason who comes across that book and it says, how old are you? I said, well, I've already passed 1 through 5. And I went on to 7 and straight on up. They don't know, they don't get past 3 degrees. And those 3 degrees are 1 through 5. Enterprise, Gullcraft, and Masturbation. That's as high as they go. There's no such thing as 33 degrees in Freemasonry. There's no such thing as 32 degrees. The original degrees of Freemasonry are only 3 degrees. Everything else is honorary studies. If I'm saying Egyptians, and we never gave them over 3 degrees. We never allowed them outside of person, places, and things. And because they are the masters of most education systems' destiny, everybody, Muslim, Christian, Jew, are all trapped under 3 degrees. Person, places, and things. And if you say, I'm going to take people to another level, I'm going to do 7. Then at that point I say, and in the metaphysical or esoteric doctrine, you've been taught about the 7 seats, or chakras. Well, because the people who were teaching that science only had 7, you follow? They don't know about the 9. Now I'm taking you from the 7 up to the next. You have to learn about the next 2 chakras, not just the one that's in the crown side. We get to the, like I said, we go to the ancient Egyptian word, you look in the dictionary under the word brow seat. You get the Egyptian word near, which you also know is been translated as pyramid or central fire. Right? It's a site right there. They considered this the 6th point, the 3rd eye. Then they went to the crown with their 12 occult nerves, which represent the 12 signs of the zodiac. And in the center of there, they put the 7th seat, the crown chakra. When they get back to Egypt at the temple of Hathor, and they look on the ceiling toward the sky, and they see the calendar of their daughter, they notice that in the center of it is Hawaret. And Hawaret is a female deity. The Moors call her Zodiacus, the center of the sign of the zodiac. They also call her Ninti. They call her, they got many different names. We see her standing in the center as the mother of mammals that are also reptilians. You know what I'm saying? So we have this degree of study. It takes us from Earth at 1, up the body, 3, on out the body, to 5, and stay on the universe. The seventh. And we keep on traveling. Right? The zodiac represents our woman, the mother of all creation, the science of the universe, and the Nwpu in actuality is a feminine word in the ancient language. For science, sound, right, and reasoning, it applies to the woman. So those are key signatures to identify. And when you get the handbook, it's coming soon. Right? You study the handbook. I may walk up to you and they say, well, how old are you? And then you say, I'm 9. When you get 9, then you're born again. No Christian can be born again until he's 9. And see, Christ, as they call him, Christos or Krishna, said, you must be born again. And when he asked, you mean I must go back into the womb? He said, no, you must be born of spirit and truth. With God, you must be saved. You must receive grace and joy. He couldn't understand. Nicodemus couldn't understand where Jesus was coming from. Well, Jesus was after the order of Melchizedek, because Jesus was an Essenes. And the only Egyptian order he could find in all Judea were the Essenes up in Jordan. So he went there following John the Baptist, because he was after the order of Melchizedek, and the Essene order was the Egyptian order, and that's the only place those degrees were being conferred. You follow that? So when he made that I am the way, the truth, and the light, he was telling them, come behind me, walk this path through this temple, and I'm going to give you this special guidance. I'm going to give you this special truth, some information that I got. It caused me problems in the temple. Because when I came back from Egypt, I had to confront the rabbis and the priests, and I got in a great argument with them about these truths of Torah. Because I had to explain to them that the Torah or the Tanakh, that holy book, is nothing but Torah. The female in the center of the zodiac, Torah. And they wasn't ready to accept the Egyptian mysteries, because they had already set up a doctrine. So he had to put aside what he learned in the ancient Egyptian order while he studied ancient Egypt and submerged himself amongst the Essenes. And at that point, he was stepping down in degrees. So you'll come around again, I promise you, and you read it and you laugh. And then I'll walk up to you sometime between now and then and say, by the way, how old are you? And you'll laugh when you answer me, when you realize how simple it is. It's explained in the handbook. That it'll be fast and free. Alright? But Freemasons do that. 1, 3, 5, 7. It's like how when they call them Master Mason, they consider themselves 7. And that 7 is what? The highest point on the chakras, or the climbing of the Kundalini, the ladders of Jacob, they get to the top. If you see the Freemasonry chart, you'll see they have all the degrees going up. And at the top they have a triangle with an eye in the triangle, and that's when you see the top, the highest so-called degree. And they'll call that 33 degrees, but in manifestation will be Hunsu. Because when they get to that so-called degree, they give you a phoenix bird looking in 2 different directions. And that's the symbol of Hunsu, the healer of ancient Egypt. And that eye is there, is looking down with it. That's eye of Ra, the sun. They find out that the light that they've been following is really the light of the, he said, I'm the light of the world. In the Holy Quran it says Allah is the Nur Samawati wal Ard. Nur Samawati wal Ard. That means the light of the heaven, the sky, and the earth. You become the light of the sky and the earth, you are still the light of the world, because you're referring to the sun. You can't immediately adjust that and say the light of the heaven and earth means my mind or my intellect, because I just explained to you that intellect is conceived in darkness, inside the head where there is no light. The thoughts come in there and then they come back out. You follow? So when he says, I am the light of the heavens and earth, the sun. So the Freemason, after all of his traveling toward the light, finds out the light he was traveling towards was nothing more than the sun. And all the knowledge he got was nothing more than knowledge with inside this earthly things. Sciences, arts, fine arts, mathematics, geometry, And he's like puzzled. And a hand reaches down from heaven and pulls him up out the muck and mire, and he wants to step through the mass and become a god. When he becomes a god, they refer to him as a supreme grand master in the lodge, as opposed to simply a master mason or a grand master who can open and close the lodge, but does not bear the title supreme grand master. He sits in the eastern point of the lodge, and above him is the eye of God, which is in actuality Re, the sun. He now is amongst the ranks of the Egyptian deities and inherits the responsibility of conveying the message to people on earth, if they are worthy and capable of keeping the secret. And what is the secret? The secret is hidden in the name, the sacred name. What is the sacred name? What name in Egypt is a Re and deals with a secret? Amun. Amun means the hidden one, the one who keeps the secret. And so the Freemason who walks through Jah, Baal, and On, he accepts the Bible, the Quran, and the Inumayinish, then finally gets to the Book of Dead. He's passed through the three, what they call monotheistic religions, and each one of them, at the end of their ritual, or when the light of their ritual starts to descend or end, says, Amen, Amun, or Umain. And they all end with the same name of the same deity. And that's why in Revelation chapter 3, verse 14, he literally says, Amun, the faithful, the true, the faithful, with a definite article to make sure that you don't think he's talking about Jesus. Well, right? Where we are going back? Just going out.
My question is from the guidance and master books.
Yes.
Deities in your mind.
Yes.
I'm having a lot of problems in putting, like, how do I give reverence to, or where do I put these deities? Is it that we follow each principle, like if you follow justice, unite, then that gives reverence to that particular deity, or?
No. Math or justice is in you. You are reaching for deities that are in you. The problem is you have reached a point. Let me say something. When a person grows up from a baby to a certain height, right? Like a plant, if you plant a specific species of a plant, when it grows and it blossoms, the plant has completed its growth. It has become what it's supposed to be. Correct? Then its next stage is dying or regression. Yeah? Everybody who is now the height they're going to ever be, like the plant, has what? And then what your intellect does is it blossoms outward and you bloom into some type of intellectual being for those who outside that reckoning. You've in other words grown to perfection. You've completed your growing stage. Now, you stop. Because you have not died, it's only because the season for human growth and decline is longer than that of a rose or a dandelion. You follow? So now where's the next journey? The next journey is once you get complete, is back inside. All the way back to your roots. And as you pass to your roots, stop looking for deities as outside entities, statues, or images, because that's what religion has done to us.